Hello, welcome to Block Printing Beyond the Basics. So this is more of an intermediate class. We're not going to learn specifically how to carve a block, but we are going to learn different techniques that go beyond the basics, so beyond just carving, inking, and printing. This lesson today is going to be on jigsaw puzzle block prints. And it's a little bit like it sounds. So you would carve a block and then cut it apart like a jigsaw and put it back together. When you cut it apart, you get to ink pieces differently. So this block I carved completely. Then after I was done carving it, I cut out the great wheel, inked that up separately in a rainbow roll from the background, put it back in, and then pulled the print. So you see you can get a multicolor block with just one pass. So you're inking it up separately, but then you put it back together to print it. So this one is another example. When I carved it initially, this is just printing it up in black. Then I cut the block around the fairy, around the Space Needle, and the great wheel, and then printed it in various colors. So it's a really great technique to get multicolor block print without having to actually do a reduction print or multiple block print. And just one more example I'll just show is this little whale. So for the whale, it's cut up into 4 pieces. Each piece is inked up individually, put back together like a puzzle, and then the paper is laid on it and a print is pulled. So now that I've given you the overview, let's do one together. The nice thing about the use of color is you don't always have to rely on texture to change the feeling of your print. So you can do something that's very simple. And what I'm going to show you is something where I am going to really do a super simple couple of lines. I'm going to make some water down here. This is going to be a mountain. This is going to be the sky. Trust me, when I get there, you're going to see it. So I am going to take a cutting mat or cardboard, because you never want to cut directly on a kitchen counter or table. So I'm going to use an X-Acto, and I am going to cut along these lines. Okay. So now I have 3 separate pieces. I'm going to move my cutting board to the side. And again, this is a super basic one, but it's going to give you the idea of how these come together. So I have my brayers. I have my water-soluble ink. That's what we're going to use in this class. That way you can wash it up with just water. If you do have oil-based water-soluble, feel free to use those as well. Use whatever you're comfortable with in your home. But for this purpose, I'm going to just use the water-based. And so I'm going to make a couple of colors. I'm going to do blue for my water. I'm going to do some green for my mountain. We are the evergreen state, right? And I'm going to do yellow for the sun. Normally I would spread these out a little bit more, but just to have everything really visible for you, I'm going to just kind of condense it. So just like you would with any other block, you're going to get your brayer charged with the ink. If you haven't done it a while, just remember that you grab a small bit of the ink, move it lower, and you're rolling it out in different directions until you get a nice consistent layer of ink on your brayer. So now I'm going to do the same with the green. getting these all charged and ready to go. And then let's get my yellow. You might not have this many sprayers at home, so that's fine. You could reduce the colors or play around with it a little bit different, and I'll show you some other ways. So I'm gonna ink the bottom up blue. And remember, I didn't even carve any lines into this. I just am relying on the color to tell my story. So I've got the blue. Always lay it back on the back bar. I've got my green. And I'm getting my yellow. Okay. Yellow and water-based ink sometimes is a little challenging to get a nice even coating, but it's a great way still using these inks to just play around, because again, you can just wash it up super simply. So now I put my piece back together just like it was a puzzle. I'm gonna take my paper, lay it down on top. Got my Japanese Baron, and I'm gonna rub the back. Remember, I always hold down with one hand because you don't wanna start rubbing with your hand and not holding it down, because you can shift the blocks. So making sure I get every corner. Fingers crossed. Okay, pull it back. So there you go. Simple. So I've got my little sun, a mountain, and water. And I was able to print 3 colors with one block and just do it as one printing. So to continue on with this, that was just to show you a real fast one. This is a block that I had done previously in a beginning class. But as I look at it now, I realize it could easily be cut apart as a jigsaw. And the reason I can see that is there's a lot of places like the river or the mountains here where I could cleanly cut them apart, but then also easily put them back together. That's the trick. You have to be able to easily put it back together while it's inked. So I'm gonna cut this one apart and see what we can do with it. So I'm gonna take my block. I think what I wanna do here is I'm gonna do the mountains, the trees, and the river as a rainbow roll. I'll do this little bottom flower part and then the sky separately. So I'm gonna cut it into a few sections. And what you do is if you follow on one of the carved lines, that way it'll be seamless. Okay, so I've cut apart now the flowers, and now I'm gonna cut apart the sky. Okay, so now you can see I've cut this block into